The defense of our commons, whether they're natural or social, is kind of on the edges. People governing their resources, governing their knowledge, governing their communities, their urban areas, defending their air, the water, their forests. This idea is not in the center of politics. The idea of the Commons Assembly is to bring out from the edges, from the sidelines, and into the center of political debate and social debate, the commons.
And there is a lot of interest by different groups working on this on different levels in having this more political movement of the commons, and not just, there's all the local activities and there's the people working on specific issues, but even though there is this awareness that's widespread, there is very little political visibility of this discourse of the commons. And so there was a group of people who felt it was we should think about how to organize around that, how to build more of a movement that's also political and that also is able to create joint demands for different levels of policy or politics, and is able to influence the public debate, and bring also these creative institutions that you see more on a local level, bring them more to national and European level institutions.
And now it's more important than ever. Trump in the presidency, Brexit, runaway climate change, everything being depleted, everything being commodified and enclosed with patents, with privatization. Our strategy from the Commons is not just to hold up a sign. Our strategy is to be the change we're demanding, to put our words with practices, by whether it's with local urban organic agriculture, whether it be by co-housing projects or eco-villages or internet sharing or energy cooperatives, etc., etc. This is showing a new way that we can move forward and build and become stronger so we could confront this power that really we think is so destructive for our natural environment, which is increasing inequality and is so dangerous. I would even say it's suicidal.
So it's also a question of exploring what this narrative means for politics, what it means for policy. And one of the issues that's become clear is it can't just be about progressive left-wing ideas. It's not necessarily left, it doesn't fit in those traditional ideological framework of left and right. And the Commons has the potential. This idea, it's to go much to reach a very broad, to resonate with a lot of people, because it's about just as much as about sharing and solidarity. It's also about conserving what's already there, like community. So to see how you can have a message that does not polarize or just have allegiance maybe with a few political parties, but that's much broader than that. And there seems to be in its narrative, in its ideas, the Commons has great potential to have that broader reach.
Yeah, the Commons has to be judged by practice, not by theory. So in practice, if people are taking part of a community space together, if they are more connected with nature, if they're growing their own food, if they're creating their own energy, if they're sharing stories and knowledge and heritage and memory, then it's working. Politics has alienated that. Most politics is about macroeconomic figures. Economy isn't even about economy anymore. It's about money. An economy is about how people live, how they take care of their homes, how they eat. The Commons points to getting over a dualistic idea between people and nature and objects, between public and private, because the commons is also a mixture of the two, or in between the state and the civil society, where the commons. So what we're doing in practice is showing a new way. Often politics has forgotten about how we live.
And even though it's about that practical level, it's about the practice, it's about people on the ground. One of the aspects that also have driven this this coming together, if you want, is that there is a role for policy. There is a role to policy can be a barrier or a facilitator for the commons, and it can kill the commons through regulations. You can kill commons. You can kill what's going on. You can suffocate them, but you can also facilitate them. You can help them. Can I think of an example? For example, through intellectual property law, if regulations that are international ensure that knowledge is freely shared, it will allow people to share knowledge and to comment and to have collaboration. If you create a system that privatizes everything, it's a barrier, and it's on very different levels. So. And also there is, there's also funding issues. You can, the European Union has a lot of, and also national governments have a lot of possibilities to fund projects that are local, and it would be, we can help move that money towards those projects, so to say.
And we see it's a way of recovering the European project. There's a lack of trust. It's seen as a far-off, big institution under big lobbies, and the business of Europe seems to be the business of big business. We think that Europe has to support hundreds, thousands of small centralized projects in the cities, in the rural areas, that give people control, that have visibility. And that's turning Europe on its head, where the values should be about ecological sustainability, because we live in a finite planet. Nevertheless, our economy is just about gluttonous and overgrowth everywhere. And at the same time, we live in a society with all kinds of knowledge and immaterial knowledge, information which should be shared, which often is being enclosed. So while typical liberal theory says we suffer from the tragedy of the commons, which is kind of like a free-for-all. Everyone gets as much as they want until nothing is left. Often, this idea of the selfish individual just destroying everything and treating citizens as just selfish individuals who are just consumers or entrepreneurs, we counterpose that with the idea that human beings cooperate, can make up the rules, can govern resources, and can actually govern the commons in a way that's not based just on tremendous growth and destroying and extracting worth, because it's actually the opposite. In our world today, in this neoliberal capitalist world today based on extreme growth, and practically all the political parties believe in this, the vast majority, in growth and growth and growth, we're extracting things out of the physical world, out of mines, out of forests, out of water, and we all see the result. But we're also extracting out of communities to get high profits. When things are commonly governed by cooperatives, by communities, it's much easier to equitably share resources, so we don't have that overuse, we don't have that over-extraction. And this is not just idealism. This is being done today all over the world, and over 1 billion people live in commons, get their resources from common self-governed resources. Many of the products we consume are coming from China, and they're the pollution in China. Our cell phones are conflict minerals that are creating violence and blood, right? The commons points for global responsibility, but it also means that we want the circular economy, things to be local and visible and traceable. This could not happen. We think that most things that are heavy should be local, and things that are light, like knowledge, should be global. It is not rational for us to be getting everything we eat and use from the other side of the world, because It prevents responsibility. It prevents us from seeing the faces of the people doing that. So in a sense, the commons is a reaction of localization, responsible localization, facing globalization. Now, this is not just, can't be just done in a day, and obviously today we're concerned about the global commons. We're concerned about our pollution and our destruction in the Congo or in China from being consumers, but eventually we think that that's one of the principles. What is heavy should be produced locally, regionally, and what is light should be shared globally. Or to design globally, consume locally.
The Interparliamentary Group on Common Goods and Public Services. So this is actually a merger of two groups. There was the group on public services of some MEPs, and then there was some members of European Parliament who wanted to have a group around the commons. And together they formed then Common Goods and Public Services. And there was the result of a longer campaign or a civil society organization to also push this group in the parliament. And so there's different parties in it. There's different parties represented in it, from Cinque Stelle to the Greens, and there's a Pirate and socialists and the left, Social Democrats. So there is an opportunity with this working group. They're interested in having this contact as well with people working on the commons, with the commons movement. So we're looking for different ways to cooperate with them and to see how we can have a similar agenda on things and inform each other and work on specific policies together. And there has been, for this this assembly that we had in the European Parliament, we've had a great and very intensive cooperation, we can say, to make it happen.
It's great. There's an incredibly rich, spiritful, intellectually stimulating group of individuals who've come from movements all over Europe, and that was a unique opportunity for them to intermingle, to cross-germinate ideas, and this is only the start. This is only the first step, and the assembly has not been an event. The assembly is an ongoing process that will continue as long as the assembly wants it to continue, and it's really important. Like Sophie spoke about the European Parliament. This is the first event, and I've been going to the European Parliament for over 15 years, where I've seen that the members of the Parliament did not sit up on the podium. They were down below with others, and the up on the podium were just regular commoners, things like that. It's the first time that we stood up and we did unconventional things of talking with our neighbors. And even so, I think many people mentioned, the structure of the parliament prevents parlare, it prevents talking. All of the seats which are rigid are just looking towards the front, and it doesn't even allow, when someone is talking, you can't even see the other people. You can only see the back of their heads, which is kind of symbolic of the repression of true dialogue with citizens that is happening in the European Parliament, where citizen participation has often been squashed and not paid attention to. Citizens' initiatives are very, very difficult. And at the same time, our Commons Assembly initiative is a European initiative. We believe in Europe. We want the European Union to be reborn in an open, democratic way that really is visible to communities and not controlled by opaque, faraway elites.
Next steps is, there have been some, today we had an assembly amongst ourselves, so to say, here at Zinneke, and we looked at what people are interested in working at, and we had different, so there's different, and also we looked at how can we work together? What can be an infrastructure for the European Commons Assembly, or what can be a way of working? What do we want it to be? So I think there's different people who started different initiatives working with each other on some people working on urban commons, some people working on developing ideas about digital tools to work together. So
natural commons.
And the natural commons are there's different ideas about where we could have a next assembly, and what form this assembly should take. So there's different people just starting to. The next steps are people starting to develop these ideas, and that would be the next step. What else are next steps?
Many of the groups are already starting tonight with working groups on comparing their local initiatives, thinking about proposals for EU policy. Many people want to channel ideas into the European Parliament. So, for example, now the European Parliament is discussing a new law on the energy union, which unfortunately is basically about giant pipelines and big energy infrastructures, and there's very little about community-controlled renewable cooperatives. That needs to be... The agricultural policy is being reformed. Collaborative economy is being discussed, and many people mistakenly think that collaborative economy is Uber and Airbnb, which, while it has some of the forms, it is not part of the commons because it's extractive. It takes the money, the information, the data out of the local communities. It causes gentrification. It makes the rents very, very high. It even can cause more use of cars in the case of Uber. Whereas our vision of collaborative economy is something that regenerates the community, that's locally controlled, that is a circular economy. It doesn't end up the money and the resources in Palo Alto, but it stays in the community. So it's very important for us to be in this European discussions on energy, on collaborative economy, on agriculture, because it points a new way of Europe that's fair, decentralized, open source, and it's citizen-based.